Okay, this is Larry Russell. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We need roll call.
First, we're gonna check to see if there's any public expression.
No. First, we need to adopt the agenda, then public expression.
Apologies. All right, so Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Chairman Russell.
Aye.
Okay, so
Okay, is there any public expression on subjects not on the agenda?
I do have a comment that was sent in earlier that I can read into the record. It says here, we are writing to express our opposition to electric assist bikes or e-bikes being approved for recreational use on MMWD watershed fire roads. As regular runners and mountain bikers on the fire roads and trails around the MMWD lakes from Phoenix to Bontempe, we have recently experienced several dangerous situations caused by the mismatch of speeds that e-bikes have with typical bikes, runners, walkers, and even horses. Several have crashed close to us after their riders made poor judgments about speed, turns, and the proximity of other people. While some riders of e-bikes may be respectful of others on the roads and trails, we have seen too many immature young teenage riders cruising at speeds easily approaching 20 to 25 miles per hour in crowded sections. Hike out to Five Corners and the Hut Beyond and see how it is on a typical Saturday morning. If your guidance permit e-bikes at any level, please consider the greater need for enforcement of speed roads versus trail use and right-of-way use, since it is currently very rare to encounter rangers or other personnel on fire roads and connected trails. Electric assist bikes bring up a host of issues, but as with any motorized vehicles on MMWD fire roads and trails, we are most concerned about the incompatibility with other users and the risk of accidents. Regards, Tom and Carol Gordon. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Chairman Russell.
Aye. Okay, item 2.
Okay, good morning, directors. This is my item. This is in regards to the California Conservation Corps. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Right, so we have been engaged with the California Conservation Corps to assist us with critical fire fuels work since entering into a sponsor agreement back in 2017. They help us with fuels work reduction, forestry work, and trails work. And it's a mutual benefit agreement where there's land management activities that we help fund, and then they also contribute funds towards. With the shelter in place order, the Marin County dictated that all local campsites should be closed. And typically, the California Conservation Corps will camp with a spike team of 8 to 10 people at local campgrounds. We've seen them camping at Panorama, out at China Camp, but as you down at Samuel P. Taylor. But as you know, all of those campgrounds are closed per state orders. So we're asking that since the district code Section 90208 prohibits camping on district watershed lands, that the board, the committee discuss and consider granting a special use permit under District Code Section 901.11 to allow them to camp on watershed lands to perform their work while the COVID-19 restrictions are in place. This would be a one-time special use permits. And we believe that this work is essential work as defined by the health order that was issued by the county health officer on March 31st that vegetation work for fuels reduction for fire safety is considered essential. That's in section 13F13 of that order that was issued on March 31st. So the crews are used to camping in remote areas and backcountry locations. And we've identified 3 locations where they could camp near ranger residences that are currently vacant. They would not be, the reason that they're ideal locations is that there's available water, drinking water, potable water for them via outdoor spigots. And there's spots for us to put portable toilets. They wouldn't be camping in the residences, but near them. And they are equipped with the equipment to set up temporary kitchens, which they do on a regular basis. So I think that's probably enough background information. One other point is that the crews typically work 10-hour shifts, so you won't really see them at the campgrounds until later in the evenings. And then they also have a supervisor, and we also have watershed maintenance staffs that manages their work when they're out doing the fuels reduction work. And we would also be sending by a ranger to check in on them. Okay, so with that, any questions?
This is Jack. I have a question. We work off of a basic contract that they have that I think was put in place several years ago. How long is the contract though? And then each year, I gather, we amend that contract for the specific season. How long is the base contract that we're operating under?
That's a good question. When we routed the last amendment to set their work for this coming year, this coming fire season preparation work, we did look at the term of that original sponsor agreement. I don't have it handy with me, but I believe it is somewhere around the year 2022. We'd have to amend that to extend the contract, but I'll have to get the exact year. But it was a couple of years out still for that sponsor agreement. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then a second question, just a curiosity here. The phrase "spike team" that struck me as interesting. But what's the source? Why a spike team? If you know, I mean, it's just something that your curiosity.
Actually, I don't know where the word spike team came from. Armando might have that answer.
Yeah, it's been used in parks. Generally, it's been for trail crews who basically they're spotted in, and then the spike refers to having to put up tents and structures for their.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question, Crystal. Are they working for us when they're camped, or is it just they need space to camp?
They will be working for us for that 8-day spike. Yes.
Is there anything we need to do in terms of public health? Like, are we going to supervise them on this social distancing and all that kind of stuff? Or how are they going to deal with that issue? Or we're just going to let them deal with it?
Right. They've already put in place their own social distancing protocols that they're employing now, but we will be checking in on them with a ranger.
Yeah, one of the things that concerns me, and I've been getting mixed messages from the state about this, is whether employers have responsibility to ensure worker safety under the virus protocols. That is, if a guy gets sick, do they have the ability or right to come back on workers' comp and say, I got sick because I had to do this work? So I'm getting, like I say, mixed messages right now out of the state. I hear one side of it saying it's an emergency and they're not going to worry about it. And I hear the other side, watch out. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, we can review the insurance requirements and the workers' comp requirements in the sponsor agreement.
Crystal, I actually lost my video, so I hope you guys can still see me, but
yeah, you're there. We see you.
Okay. I'll fiddle around on my end, but the last time I was in the watershed, the water spigots were actually closed. The public water fountains were closed. There was actually caution tape around the one at Phoenix. And then the one up on Eldridge is actually, you know, it's shut off entirely. So I had a question about whether that is part of the health officer's order, if anybody knows that. And then B, of course, would be we'd have to get an exemption to at least talk to the health officer about it. I'm sure he would give us an exception, but are public water facilities in the watershed closed under the health order?
My understanding is, and Crystal, you can chime in, is that it's not in the order per se, but it's become a best practice for parks and open lands due to the congregation that had been occurring around drinking fountains and just the close contact nature and potential source of contamination. So we've followed in terms of the best management practice that's been out there and generally, as far as we know, widely accepted for parks and public open spaces like that to secure fountains.
Yeah, they could certainly be a vector just by touching, you know, so.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and then the district code actually says the exemption is for employees. So technically they're contractors, independent contractors, I would assume, but that's getting pretty blurry now too in California. So sounds like a good idea to me. I mean, I do think it's critical work and we need to get it done.
I actually think this is an interesting window into what we may be seeing more of in the future, because my sense is as we recover from the shutdown from this pandemic, I wouldn't be surprised, and actually I would really encourage something like a WPA sort of effort to really focus folks who need work to put their efforts into public lands and certainly the sorts of issues that will reduce fire and things like that. I think it's an opportunity as a nation to really make a big difference in, you know, we have plenty of perils that we're facing right now. And I think it would be a smart thing to think about as a district on how we might accommodate that in the future.
Sort of like the Green New Deal.
Sort of.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve, or let's forward it onto the board?
I'll move approval. This is Jack.
So actually, we're just, going to check for public comments on this item. Jeannie, were there any public comments?
None submitted via email.
Okay, and it looks like as of the attendees, there are no public comments at this time.
Okay. Item 3, Paul.
Yes, good morning. This is definitely a first, a completely remote doc meeting, huh? Yeah, treatment plant, water treatment plant chemicals. This is our annual contracting for the supply of those chemicals. This year, while we were in the middle of going out for bid for the chemicals, the public health crisis that we're all enjoying now was becoming full swing. As a result, the Bay Area Chemical Consortium, who runs the chemical bids, canceled them and recommended that participating agencies simply extend their agreements for an additional year. And that's what we have done here. And the chemical costs are a marginal increase. And of course, the final costs we won't know until we find out how much water we produce in the next year, because the volume of chemicals is, of course, linked to the volume of water that we make. So really, this is a pretty straightforward item for the most part. I think I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions.
Just looking at my notes. So you're doubling up on the ferric chloride?
Doubling up. You mean in terms of cost or?
No, I thought
No,
you were doubling the order just to have enough on hand.
no. So, no, maybe you're, yeah, maybe in the COVID-19 update where we talked about adding some storage at the treatment plants,
Oh, okay.
which we added a small tank up at Bontempi to give us an additional couple thousand gallons, which just gives us that security of supply throughout, the PSPS events that might show up later this summer. So that's really what that was about. In terms of overall supply, it's pretty much the same as previous year.
And then on the total organic carbon, the TOC comment.
Yeah.
The ferric chloride has always been a standard part of our procedures, correct?
Yeah, correct. Since 2003, August 2003. Prior to that, we used alum. But yes.
And then you saw I sent you guys the OEHA proposed regulations,
Right.
400 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Light reading for the PHGs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the public health goals.
So I think it's a good idea. I was concerned about whether our supply chain for chemicals was even gonna fray.
Yeah.
So my only other comment, of course, is on fluoride. There's actually, just a brief update for the board, there's actually federal litigation, I am informed, is supposed to go to trial in June. Whether it's delayed again, I don't know, but it's set for trial in front of Judge Chin on June 20th. So that's a case against the EPA, federal EPA. And then my only other comment is OEHA is still, over 10 years out of compliance as far as setting the PHG for fluoride. So I'm going to be abstaining on the item. I totally support the staff recommendation, but it's just a symbolic abstention based on the inclusion of fluoride.
Well, there won't be any vote on this one. This is just going to the board for
Okay.
approval.
It should go to the board. I would,
Yes.
I would support that.
Yeah.
Paul, one thing that's obvious, being that ferric is half of our chemical budget, obviously anything we can do to reduce that dose would be helpful. So any level of optimization, or perhaps, using a polymer in addition to the ferric to cut that cost.
Yeah,
As a
agreed.
thought. Not a comment, really, just something to think about.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, can I get a motion to forward it to the board?
So I'm so sorry. So we're gonna just make sure that we don't have any public comment on this item.
Sure.
I have no public comments via email.
Thank you. And it does not look like there's any public comments via participants online.
Can you, for the sake of the audience, either Charisse or Jeannie, mention how the public can do a hand raise?
Yeah, sure. You got it?
Go ahead, Jeannie, sorry.
Okay. So if the public would like to comment, they can click the raise hand button, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. If you're joining by phone, you just press *9 and we'll see your hand raise.
And could I just ask Paul one other question, and I don't want to belabor it, but
Sure.
it does relate to the COVID-19 outbreak, which is, are we testing the viricide, effects?
So it's a good question. Our entire water treatment process, of course, is built upon the destruction of viruses. And so the chlorine contact time that we have even within just our clear wells at the treatment plant are adequate to assure 99.99% destruction. So we're, that's sort of the basis of water treatment, and that's our benchmark. So we are very confident that that the virus and our water, the virus is destroyed, and of course that our water is safe to drink and meets all the necessary standards.
And in addition, we maintain a chlorine residual throughout the distribution system that provides that extra protection and ongoing protection of the water.
With the chloramine
Right.
to chase. Yeah.
Okay, still need a motion to move it to the board.
Move approval.
Second? Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Item 4, pipeline extension. I guess that's you, Mike, or you've got somebody else?
That's me, Larry. So this is a discussion item, and this will be pretty quick. The Residence at Preserve is a residential rental project on an undeveloped 15-acre parcel located at the intersection of Robin Drive and Paradise Drive at the eastern extent of Corte Madera and bordering the town of Tiburon. The town of Corte Madera approved this project in April of last year. The upper 9 acres of the property will remain an open space, and the lower approximately 6 acres will be developed with 16 single-family rental units and 8 attached accessory dwelling units. The project is adjacent to the existing preserve at Marin rental apartment complex. In accordance with district code, the owner, Aimco Robin Drive LC, will be required to extend the district's facilities in Robin Drive in order to provide water service to the development under a pipeline extension agreement with the district. The required facilities include 800 feet of 6-inch pipe, 2 fire hydrants, and water services. So district staff will present this project for board consideration on May 12th, along with all of the required approvals. And again, this is a discussion item, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mike, so this is next to the school, is that right? The old school that's there?
Is next to this, it's at the very, let's see. I mean, it's a vacant parcel. You mean the school on the other side of Paradise?
No, it's on the same side of Paradise.
Okay.
There's a school that Reed Union doesn't use. That's up, not the one that's not the French school that they converted over, the one on the north side. This one's on the south side. I think it's
Okay.
up that hill. It's funny, I don't know Robin Drive by name, but looking at the map, it looks like that to me.
Yeah, I think I see a MCSD school adjacent. Is that it, do you think?
Probably. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't quite read the drawing on my copy of it, so otherwise I wouldn't have asked.
And I had a quick question on the gray water. There's an exemption for 100-foot setback from water courses. And I'm just wondering, I couldn't read the map whether there even is a water course there or not.
There is, but it's across Paradise.
And there is, yes, Director Russell's correct. And they just won't be using it within that area. They are going to be providing gray water to the units.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's 8 ADUs too. So, and they would be under the old ADU ordinance. So they would need to get separate meters.
No, I don't think so. I think they would qualify. They would not need a separate meter because the new ADU ordinance is in place.
But that does not exempt new development. It only applies to existing residential that add an ADU. So it's just something maybe to make a note.
Okay.
Of.
Yeah. We'll get back to you on that. Thank you, Larry.
Or get it fixed one way or the other.
Yeah.
So that we can modify the agreement if needed.
Does it make sense to consider the possibility of purple pipe requirement there? I mean, is that any possibility in the future?
You know, we don't have a main close to that location.
It's a good idea, Jack, but I think it's a pretty long stretch from even the closest purple pipe is probably 3 miles.
Right, yeah, it would be back in San Rafael.
Yeah. Okay. Any public comment? I can't see where these hands are supposed to be on my screen anyway, so I see something with participants 22, but I don't see anything else about pictures.
So there are no public comments in email.
When we did this yesterday, there was a thing on the right-hand side. I could see that the people with their hand held.
Right. So if you go to the bottom of your screen under participants 22 and click on that,
Yes.
you'll see it on the right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, I see. That's what I was after. Yes. Okay. That makes it easy.
And it looks like there's also no public comments participating via Zoom.
And then, well, now I'm a little more confused. I see us, and I see the camera and the microphone, and I see the people, but where does their hand come up on the people?
Then on the top of that participants panel that you see,
yeah, I see attendees, right?
Yeah, click on attendees, and then you'll see a list.
I did.
Yeah, they don't have their hands up.
Okay, so if their hands not up, I can't see anything.
Correct.
Right. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Need the COVID update, Ben.
I'll kick this
Item
off.
5.
Sure. Board members, this item is to provide the board with more granularity from the routine updates we've been providing you as it relates to the district's COVID-19 activities and initiatives. As you know, essentially all of our efforts have revolved around keeping staff safe for both, of course, being a responsible employer to our staff, and also keeping our staff safe means we can continue to perform the work, the essential work of the district, including providing water for our customers. And all of these efforts have been district-wide, and personally I applaud all staff throughout the organization for doing quite a bit of additional work and work in different ways and going out and performing work. 70% of our staff works in the field, and they've been continuing to come out. We have not had a rash of vacancies or absences, and getting the work done, including emergency work, middle of the night, main breaks, and I do really applaud staff for that. I wanted to turn this over to Crystal, who's been leading our business continuity plan development and update process and our weekly check-ins we've been having with the management team, and Crystal will go through it in a bit more detail. Crystal?
Okay, thank you, Ben. So in preparation for this staff report, we put together a timeline of the actions and plans that we've been developing throughout this event. And I'm going to step through the timeline, but before I do, I just wanted to reiterate Ben's comment that yes, 70% of our staff is field crews, and we're still working 24 hours a day to provide clean, reliable drinking water, whether that's running the treatment plant, repairing breaks in the street, hit hydrants, or even operations and dispatch where we man our hundreds of pump stations and tank sites. So with that, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on how things progressed over the last couple of months. First off, before I get into it, let me mention that while our offices are closed to the public, we are available via phone or email. And for customer service and billing, The number is 415-945-1400. And 24 hours a day, you can call for emergencies, water emergencies at 415-945-1500. The watershed remains open to the public, but there's some important public health and safety restrictions in terms of social distancing guidelines. And also we have prohibited motor vehicle access to the watershed, with the exception of individuals with disabilities and that have a disability placard or license plate. We've provided parking for them up at the Sky Oaks lot. So back in January 26, California had its first reported cases of COVID. And soon after that, on March 6, Ben Hornstein sent out a directive to staff to place restrictions on staff attending external meetings and conferences. It was a few days later that the state public health announced that gatherings of 250 people or more should be rescheduled. So we were ahead of the curve on that. The week of March 9th, we realized that we should start planning for remote work. We'd had several meetings internally with management team, but at this point we actually directed mid-managers to start developing work plans for business continuity. And we provided a template for that. And the work plans are very detailed in terms of what is their primary function of their work group, what are the critical tasks that they do in their work group. We had them add contact information for themselves, the managers, and their designated backup. So we would have cell phones and ways to contact people if needed. We also put together telework schedules. At first, we were looking at just 1 or 2 days a week, but as things progressed, we pushed harder and harder to take advantage of the technology that's out there and try to move as many administrative staff home as we could to work remotely. Of course, there's still work that has to be done that's paper. We get invoices in the mail that need to be opened. We have bills that need to be sent out for customers. So there's, at times, staff are coming into the office to sort of move paper, but we've also made many of our processes electronic in terms of approval processes. So there's been some great steps forward in terms of efficiencies in the workplace and reducing paperwork because of that. We also implemented safety measures the week of March 9th, and we started to train staff on the use of masks and PPE. We sent out a directive that required staff that have to work in an area that's less than 6 feet, that they had to wear masks. And so these are folks that might be jumping down into an excavation, and they're helping each other to move a large piece of pipe around, and they just cannot avoid working in greater than 6 feet, so they are required to wear masks. We also that week started checking inventories. We looked at our minimum stockpile and reorder limits in the warehouse for fittings. We looked at our chemical inventories, and we started communicating with our available supply chains to make sure that we would have backup supplies in case a vendor was unable to fulfill our orders. On March 13th, we officially notified the County of Marin that we had activated our Emergency Operations Center to expedite our planning efforts. Also on March 13th, we suspended termination of water services for non-payment for both residential and commercial customers. On March 14th and 15th, it was a weekend, and we were overrun with vehicles in the watershed. People were no longer able to go to bars and restaurants, and so they started to flock to the outdoor spaces to socialize and recreate. We were so busy that weekend that there was no parking left in any of our designated parking spots within the watershed, and people were parking on the shoulders and starting to impact the ability for emergency vehicles to get through in case there was an emergency. So we made a decision that Saturday to close the watershed gates to try to stop the inflow of traffic The next day, we ended up doing the same thing again. We had to close the watershed gates on March 15th. That week, on the following week, around Wednesday, we did close the administration building to public access. Also that week, we stopped imposing new late fees. And the next week, we suspended all past due notices. That following, soon after we were seeing all the traffic in the watershed, the county came out with an order to prohibit vehicle access to parks and open space. And so we officially closed the watershed to vehicle access on March 24th, closing the gates at Natalie Coffin Green, out at Leo Cronin, and at Sky Oaks. On March 25th, we officially filed a request for public assistance with FEMA, and we were keeping track of the expenses that we're incurring in terms of purchasing PPE and setting up disinfection contracts in the workplace and other activities that we're doing in response to COVID. We've also set up account numbers to track staff in case we were working overtime. We also, at that point on March 25th, assisted the county with closing Bofax Road from Meadow Club out to Highway 101. This limits the amount of traffic that we get to some of our most popular trails. For example, the Cataract Waterfall Trail at Alpine Dam. On March 27th, following the spread of COVID at a wastewater treatment plant in San Jose through a janitor, we realized that we had a vector that we needed to take control of. So we reduced or canceled our janitorial services. Folks now have to dump their own garbage out to larger garbage cans, and the janitor picks it up. So we're trying to reduce potential external vectors. We also, at that point, after speaking and communicating with other agencies around the Bay and across the country, we started to think about separating our staff in terms of shift changes, so there wouldn't be as much social connection or when they would see each other in the yard when they were getting ready in the mornings. Prior to that, we had parked vehicles in different areas, but at this point we were like, okay, let's change shifts. We set up a second skated dispatch station in the corporation yard so that the two operators that work in the daytime weren't in the same room together. On March 30th, we actually developed 12-hour shifts for our emergency pipe repair crews so that they're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, with Sunday being their 8-hour every other week shift. We also, at that point, had received delivery of our second ferric tank because we knew that ferric chloride was a long lead time item for chemicals. And we wanted to make sure we had stockpiled enough supply. When it's busy in the summer, we'll have ferric deliveries every other day. So we wanted to make sure we had enough. We also set up a second operator workstation at the Bon-Tempe treatment plant to increase social distancing. On April 5th, news was coming out in terms of masks and the proper protocols for wearing masks. And so we updated our PPE plan to ensure staff safety and to provide available PPE, not only to our field crews that were working in less than 6 foot distance, but folks that are in the field wherein somebody from the public might walk up to them. For example, rangers often have public coming right up to their windows. So there'll be inadvertent interactions that are less than 6 feet. So we came up with protocols as to when you had to wear the N95 mask versus when it's recommended to wear it for inadvertent interactions versus when it's optional, for example, wearing a surgical mask in the office building. So from there, on April 10th, we did receive that extra delivery of ferric into our new tank that we had plumbed up. And then on the week of April 13th, that brings us to this week, we're starting to increase our video conferencing capabilities. We found that, conference calls are great. We had issued an internal communications plan to staff that detailed how to access emails remotely, how to tie in through a virtual private network. We had issued conference calling ID numbers and host pins to everyone. But we find that, you know, as it goes on longer and longer, that we're missing that visual connection between staff. So it's very important to us to maintain that line of communication. So we're starting to develop additional tools for video conferencing. And of course, having board meetings through video conferencing is also now rolling out. And then this week we're installing a second SCADA workstation at Bontempe. And we're also now starting to talk internally in regards to large construction projects and which projects are essential and which ones can wait. So, and now we're starting to think more long-term in terms of project planning for the district. But we've all been in close communication every week through routine emails from the general manager and HR as the rules came out for COVID leave that were granted by the federal government. We had a lot of questions from staff that have, you know, children at home or pre-existing conditions. And so all of the information that's needed for staff to make decisions as to their own personal safety, we've been rolling out emails to staff on those details. We also are meeting weekly with our division and department managers to do a business continuity planning update. We've been keeping our telework and our work plans updated weekly. One thing I missed is that we did also execute a contract with a disinfection company that sprays a aerosol bleach solution in different concentrations depending on the need. And we now have twice weekly disinfection of shared work areas. And that includes not only office space and operator space, but we also are disinfecting our vehicles that are shared. So we use dump trucks for different shifts. And so it'll be different drivers in the dump trucks. So we're now disinfecting those twice a week on the shift changes on the 12-hour shifts. We also have that contractor available to help us disinfect at a higher concentration if there was ever a confirmed outbreak. So we'll be able to go in and manage any office area or workspace if we were to get a confirmed positive COVID in the workplace. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions.
I think it's great what you guys are doing, Crystal. What I'd like to have us do is to look down the road a little bit to see where, in general, some of these ideas are pretty good ones. Like the disinfection, you know, they've been talking about if we can continue as a society, the hand washing, you can reduce colds by 50%. So I think there's a lot to be learned here about general hygiene and how to make the workplace healthier. A comment about the folks that have the people approaching their vehicles. It seems to me that a face shield would be even superior to the face mask, both better yet, but the face shield at least stops the spray, so you get it caught. I guess the other option would be to give them a sign and say, I can't talk to you unless you have a mask on, or something like that, that they hold up against the window and say, you know, that's how it's going to be. The other thing that I would like to see us do in the next 6 months or so is to address the long run, what we're going to do. Because I mean, they're talking, Garcetti's talking at least 2021. Harvard's talking 2022. So, you know, we need to be thinking about how we're going to change our style to adapt to that. You know, I don't know how we get off. It's unclear to me when this all stops, but that's probably beyond all of us. But it's probably something we should be thinking about, is how do you make the transitions between and when is it appropriate? Do we want to have a different set of criteria than the state has, for instance, you know, like in board meetings or in committee meetings? Do we want to have something that's different that provides even more safety than the state thinks is the minimum? So just food for thought.
Mm-hmm. I have a question and a comment. Comment first. Thank you, Crystal. That's really excellent. And I hope that the leadership here can really extend the thanks on behalf of the entire board for everything the employees are doing. It's amazing. But I wonder about the Rangers in terms of emergency medical response. Have there been any incidents where Rangers have had to, respond to an accident where they're actually in physical contact with visitors?
Yeah, we had a bike wreck on Ridgecrest last weekend that resulted in a transport to Marin General. And our Rangers are meeting with local EMTs and fire departments to go through the protocol for what PPE is necessary for contact with a patient in the field. So they've been given all of the proper PPE to assist in a medical situation and trained on it.
Yeah.
Especially, what if you came across a hiker that's having shortness of breath? I mean, that would possible COVID patient. But plus, the symptoms are sometimes masked and people don't have overt symptoms and they could be positive. So any medical connection where you're going to be, talking to somebody closely, they'll be wearing all of their proper PPE.
Okay, thanks.
Have we given them something to carry the PPE in? It's kind of my experience with using a lot of PPE. It's difficult to carry in a vehicle and keep it clean. We got something, a box or something that's sealed so that they can keep it clean more than just laying on the seat?
Right. Given the scarcity of masks right now, we did come up with a policy for reuse in terms of if the mask is not soiled. We worked out, we looked at the CDC guidelines for reusing masks. And one thing we learned was that you should not put it in a plastic bag. You want it to dry out so that
of course,
low humidity. So we've provided paper bags to staff to store their masks in. And if they need to replace their mask, they have to go through their supervisor because we're keeping strict tabs on the inventory. But we will readily replace their mask if it gets soiled or contaminated. Yes.
If we have adequate resource?
Yes, we've been keeping good track of our supplies, and we just got in an order of KN95s from China, which are our sort of
Chinese ones,
our second choice for masks. But we still have regular U.S. certified N95s in stock. So. And we have a supply of surgical masks as well.
Okay. Well, like I say, let's start thinking about the future because, I think we're looking at 6 more months of this without any question or something like that. So
we've provided also, in terms of PPE, we've also have provided alcohol spray bottles to our operators that need to spray down keyboards or surfaces that are shared between shifts. So for electronics, we have alcohol spray bottles.
You might want to think about using bleach there, a dilute solution of bleach. I think it's superior to alcohol for that kind of disinfection. Something like the Clorox wipes or stronger. We're just making our own solutions up. I run a private mailbox and we've been having them clean everything, down with the bleach solution. And I just have a stronger feeling about bleach than I do about alcohol in terms of its disinfectant power. There obviously are situations as an oxidizer, you might not want to spray it on certain electronics. But on the other hand, it's dilute enough, it probably doesn't matter.
Alcohol's not so great on your keyboard either.
No, that's true. That's true.
So,
and to that end, that's an interesting comment, Larry. There are plastic shields that go over keyboards that are much easier to clean. Something to think about. Or ban the joint use of keyboards, dedicated to an individual. And to that end, you talked a little bit about changing the requirements for the workers at home. Are we stepping up to the issue of equipment? If they need a new laptop, are we dealing with the laptop and getting them what they need?
Yeah, one of our biggest issues at first was the Citrix accounts and the bandwidth, and we actually had to upgrade our server to be able to give those VPNs to more staff, and we rolled it out over a few week period. But we've had very few instances where laptops were needed at home, and in those cases we have provided laptops to staff.
And what about
Yeah,
just
and the phone works pretty good too as a backup for that situation. It's just if you need a bigger picture or not.
what about just getting the bandwidth to employees that are working from home?
Right, yeah, we've been monitoring the bandwidth and the traffic on our virtual private network, and we've been doing pretty well. We tell folks that if they're just going online to grab a file from our server folders to log in, grab that file and log back off. We don't want people to be online too much. If we find that the users that are using GIS or AutoCAD are the ones that are eating up most of the bandwidth, and so that was sort of a priority to ensure that, we weren't hogging up the lines with GIS. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Might be worth thinking about a separate line for them, separate VPN.
One question, Larry, before you wrap it up. On the
Yes.
on Sky Oaks, is it open for parking for disabled, or is it closed for everybody?
It's only open for disabled placarded vehicles at the Sky Oaks Ranger Station. Off to the left is some parking that's available.
Before the gate.
Before the gate. And then
Yeah.
you could go hiking through the meadow at Sky Oaks over to Bon Tempe. Yeah.
Okay. So there's public parking in the headquarters area.
Right, for those with disabilities.
Yes, with the placard. Okay, thank you, Crystal.
Okay. Any questions? Any comments from the public?
I have no public comments via email.
I would like you to capture the names of the folks that attended the meeting, and if we can approach them, I'd like to get their thoughts on how this worked for them.
Will do.
I don't know if that's possible or not, but if it is.
I'm going to screenshot it.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea. Very good idea.
Thank you. And no public comments via Zoom.
Yeah, the names that are on here, mine have different colors. Is there any logic to the color? I have brown and yellow and blue and green.
I don't think so. That may be a personal choice on the attendees' part.
Okay, I'm just curious if there was something about it. Okay, well, keep up the good work. I mean, I'm very impressed that we've had no infections, and let's keep it that way. Like I say, let's start thinking about the down the road issues of where we're going with this and what we can learn from it and improve district operations in the future.
I also would like to thank the leadership team for the very clear communication with the board on the actions and the things that you're all working on. It's been great.
Yeah, and we do appreciate the stress of all this and the difficulty. We really appreciate you hanging in there and keeping us on the right track.
We are fortunate to have, we are fortunate really to have such a great staff and a strong management team here that has kept the water flowing and the work going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people healthy.
Yeah. Okay.
And thank you, Bob, too. We appreciate your guidance too.
Thanks so much.
Okay, well, we'll see you all on Tuesday.
All right.
I guess we're just going to keep doing this until the stay in place order stops. Is that kind of the plan? Or you might, like I say, maybe get something to address this down the road, what we're going to do.
Yeah, well, I'll be communicating with the board. This was a bit of a pilot in our approaches evolving, but I'll let the board know what we're thinking in terms of Tuesday and going forward.
Yep. I do like the Zoom.
Yeah, the only comment I have about the Zoom is the one that was obvious. At least for the next 3 or 4 meetings, we need to do the same thing you did this one. Started about a half an hour early. Because my experience, it's great once it goes, but getting it to go and getting everybody to go, it just seems to take 15 minutes with these, from my experience with these guys. After that, it does a great job. So, and it did a great job, and it's a good choice, Jeannie, and it looks like it's going to work. So let's hope that that continues, and keep whatever bandwidth you need on the end. Something, just a point of thought. Being you're allowing remote access of employees, you might consider allowing remote access of the board members to our emails. So something to think about. I know there was a firewall there that they didn't want us to cross, but now everybody seems to be crossing it. So we're, I think you should consider giving us access too, although it's not a big deal one way or the other. Okay. With that, I'll close the meeting. See you all Tuesday. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Stay healthy.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.